The slap landed before I even understood what was happening. A sharp, stinging crack echoed across the baby shower hall, slicing through the warm chatter and soft music like lightning tearing open a calm sky. My face jerked to the side, and for a moment the world around me blurred into pink balloons, spinning lights, and the faint smell of vanilla frosting drifting from the dessert table. My cheek burned, my ears rang, and the tiny pink gift box slipped slightly in my trembling hand. I am Mama Jo, and welcome to my channel. Before I tell you what happened next, comment where you're watching from. I love seeing how far my stories travel. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss a new chapter. I blinked hard, trying to steady myself, but the floor felt uncertain beneath me. The chatter died instantly. Dozens of eyes, wide, startled, confused, turned toward us. Even the music seemed to shrink into silence. Standing before me, with her hand still half raised, was my daughter-in-law, Tessa. She looked perfect, beautiful. Her baby shower dress hugged her figure in all the right places. Soft curls framed her face, and her makeup was immaculate. But her eyes were cold, sharp, burning with a hatred I had never imagined someone could hold toward me. "How dare you bring me something like this?" she snapped, her voice shrill enough to slice through the stunned silence of the room. "An empty box? Are you trying to mock me? And my own baby shower?" I felt my lips part, but no words came out. The throbbing in my cheek pulsed with every heartbeat. I held the tiny box closer, barely able to breathe. "Tessa, sweetheart, you didn't... Don't!" She took a step closer, her voice dropping into a deep hiss meant only for me. "Just don't. You always do this. Always trying to steal my moment, always trying to make everything about you." Her words cut deeper than the slap. All around us, guests exchanged looks, fearful, uncomfortable, some even pitying. A few pressed hands to their mouths. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Another murmured, "This is so wrong." But not a single person stepped forward, not even my son. Daniel stood a few feet away, frozen, shock written across his face. His eyes darted between us, confusion and panic clashing violently in his expression. He hadn't seen what happened clearly, not yet. He didn't know what to believe. Tessa lifted the box dramatically, shaking it so it made a soft, hollow, fluttering sound. "Look at this!" she shouted toward the crowd. "She gave me an empty box at my baby shower. Who does that?" Gasps, whispers, frowns. Heat crawled up my neck, filling my eyes with tears I fought desperately to keep from falling. My fingers curled around themselves, trembling so violently I had to press my hand against my stomach to hide it. "Tessa, please!" "Don't lie," she snapped. "You're just trying to embarrass me, because you can't handle not being the most important woman in Daniel's life anymore." The words hit me harder than the slap. A tear finally escaped, sliding down my cheek, stinging the hot, reddened skin where her hand had struck me. Tessa smirked. "Useless," she murmured loudly enough for everyone to hear. "You're useless." More whispers rippled through the room. Some guests looked away, ashamed for her. Others stared at me with a mixture of sympathy and confusion. A few quietly lifted their phones, and still, I couldn't speak. Not because I didn't have words, but because my heart ached too deeply to form them. I had come with love, with hope, with something precious, and instead, I was standing in the center of a room full of witnesses to my humiliation. The small box trembled in my hand again, the box she thought was empty, the box she hadn't even checked properly. Before I tell you what happened next, comment where you're watching from. I love seeing how far my stories travel, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss a new chapter. As I stood there, breath unsteady, Tessa tossed her hair over her shoulder and crossed her arms, acting as though she were the one who had been wronged. "You should leave," she muttered, "before you ruin anything else." I felt my throat tighten painfully, but before I turned away, before I stepped back, before I ran to hide the tears I could no longer contain, a young woman near the dessert table whispered to her friend. I think I recorded the whole thing. The words floated across the room like a spark waiting to ignite a fire. My heart skipped, the world sharpened, and every humiliation, every insult, every drop of pain that had filled my chest shifted. Because what Tessa didn't know was, the box wasn't empty at all, and neither was the future she had just destroyed with her own hands. When I was a young mother, I believed love alone could hold a family together. Back then, the world felt softer, Mornings tasted like warm cocoa, afternoons like sunlight on polished floors, and evenings like the low hum of Michael's voice as he told our son stories about courage, kindness, and the sort of humility that makes a man honorable. Daniel grew up in that warmth. I can still see him, 5 years old, running barefoot into the kitchen, curls bouncing, cheeks flushed from play. "Mommy, look," he'd say, holding up a drawing that looked more like tangled squiggles than anything alive. But I'd kiss his forehead and beam as though he had recreated the entire world with just a crayon and determination. He was soft-hearted, gentle, thoughtful. Michael used to say, "He's a good man in the making. You'll see." He was right. And then Michael fell sick. Cancer is a thief that steals slowly. First the strength, then the laughter, then the pieces of normal life you never thought could disappear. Through it all, Daniel was there, holding his father's hand, fetching water, bringing soup, humming songs his father loved. He was 14 when he first cried in my lap, big tears soaking my blouse as he whispered, "Mom, I'm not ready to lose him." I wasn't ready either. After Michael passed, our home felt emptier, as if every room exhaled at the same time and never inhaled again. But Daniel and I clung to each other. We survived grief together, stitched our hearts together again, piece by careful piece. For years, it was just us. Quiet dinners, long talks, movie nights where we'd quote the lines together. He treated me with a tenderness that made strangers smile. So when he first brought a girl home, a pretty, bright-eyed 22-year-old named Tessa, I welcomed her warmly, perhaps too warmly. I didn't want to be the kind of mother-in-law stories were written about. I wanted to give her space, affection, and a sense of belonging. That first meeting, she was polite enough. Too polite, maybe. Her smile felt painted on, her compliments too rehearsed. When she hugged me, her arms barely touched my shoulders. But I ignored the small things. Young women change with comfort, I told myself. She'll relax with time. But she didn't relax. She sharpened, and slowly, quietly, things began to change. At first, Daniel still visited every Sunday. He still brought over groceries sometimes, helped fix things around the house, and insisted on walking me to my car after dinner. But slowly, the rhythm shifted. One Sunday, he texted, "Mom, we're going shopping today. Rain check?" Another, "Tessa's family is hosting lunch. Sorry. Next week?" And then the messages grew fewer, shorter, more distant. The first time I noticed something was truly wrong, Daniel came over for dinner and couldn't stay more than 30 minutes. Every time his phone buzzed, he flinched. "You okay, sweetheart?" I asked gently. He forced a smile. "Yeah, Mom, just tired." But his eyes said something else. His shoulders drooped. His spirit sagged as though someone was pulling strings behind him, tightening him into silence. Later that week, Tessa sent me a message, short, clipped, almost condescending. "Tessa, please don't overwhelm Daniel with visits. He's stressed enough." I stared at my phone for a long time. Overwhelm him? Me? All I'd done was ask if he wanted to drop by for stew. Still, I responded politely, "Of course, I understand, even if I didn't." As months passed, I noticed more changes. Daniel spoke less freely. He asked permission before making small decisions, permission that came in quiet glances toward Tessa, even when she wasn't present. He hesitated before accepting invitations. He canceled plans often. At family gatherings, she clung to him, guiding his responses before he opened his mouth. If he complimented a dish I made, she corrected him. "No, babe, you liked mine better, remember?" If he laughed too long at something I said, she slipped a hand around his arm and leaned in close, whispering something I could never hear, but always felt. And when they married, the shift became complete. She became the gatekeeper. Every call went through her first. Every plan required her approval. Every suggestion I made was subtly undermined. Daniel doesn't like that kind of food anymore. Daniel prefers modern decor, not, older stuff. Daniel and I decided we want space from extended family. Each comment chipped away at something I cherished, but Daniel didn't notice, or he pretended not to. Still, I swallowed the hurt. He was happy, I told myself. That was enough. Until the pregnancy. When Daniel told me they were expecting, I held his hands and cried. For joy, but also for hope. Maybe the baby would soften Tessa. Maybe motherhood would melt the coldness inside her. Maybe a new life would rebuild our fractured closeness. But instead, pregnancy only sharpened her edges. She became territorial, possessive, annoyed by the slightest suggestion. When I offered to help decorate the nursery, she replied with a smile so thin it looked painful. "We don't want the baby growing up with outdated taste," she said. When I crocheted a soft yellow blanket, the kind my own mother made for me, Tessa wrinkled her nose. Thanks, but we prefer high-quality store-bought things." Every attempt I made to connect felt like walking barefoot on thorns. And yet, I kept trying, because this baby, my grandchild, represented something sacred: hope, legacy, new beginnings. That's why, when I found the penthouse listing again, the same one Michael once loved, I felt a pull deep in my chest. It had everything a young family needed: space, safety, sunlight, privacy, a home where laughter could echo again. I visited alone. Walking through those rooms felt surreal. Dust motes floated in sunlight like tiny blessings. The balcony view stretched across the city, promising mornings of warm light and evenings of peaceful skies. I imagined Daniel holding his child there. I imagined holidays, birthdays, tiny feet pattering across polished floors. I imagined giving him something ours, something built from love. So I bought it, quietly, with savings I had clung to for years, with the last investment Michael left behind, with a prayer whispered into the wind. I didn't tell Daniel, I didn't tell Tessa. I knew Daniel would be grateful. But I also knew Tessa would turn the gift into leverage, something she wielded to control him further. I wanted the home to be an anchor, not a weapon, so I wrapped the key in a tiny velvet box, pink ribbon tied perfectly around it, and set it aside for the baby's shower. I imagined the look on Daniel's face. I imagined his eyes lighting the way they used to. I imagined Tessa softening, for once, perhaps thanking me, perhaps hugging me in surprise. Foolish, maybe, but hope makes fools of us all. On the day of the baby shower, I woke early, smoothing my dress carefully, brushing my hair until it fell softly around my shoulders. I added light makeup, earrings Michael had gifted me once upon a time, and a necklace Daniel bought me on his first paycheck. I stood before the mirror, practicing my smile. "It will be a beautiful day," I whispered to myself. "This gift will bring us closer." I picked up the little box, small, delicate, shining with promise, and held it close to my heart for a moment. Then I walked out the door, filled with hope, not knowing that by the end of the day, hope would taste like blood and heartbreak instead. Because sometimes the people you sacrifice the most for are the ones who wound you the deepest. And sometimes the gift meant to unite a family becomes the spark that reveals who they truly are. When I stepped into the baby shower hall, bright lights, pink decorations, joyful chatter filling the air, I had no idea I was also stepping into the center of a public heartbreak, one that would change everything, one that would expose the cracks Tessa had been hiding behind her perfect smile, and one that would show me, painfully but clearly, that love without boundaries becomes a battlefield. I walked forward, the box warm in my palm, smiling, hopeful, ready to embrace a new chapter, unaware that the chapter waiting for me was carved in humiliation, unaware that my kindness would be slapped across my face, unaware that everything I had built could shatter in a single moment, unaware that my family, my son, my grandchild, my home, was about to be tested in ways I never imagined. But most of all, unaware that inside that tiny pink box lay the truth that would unravel every Lee. And that heartbreak sometimes is the door to justice. The murmurs rose around me like a tide I was drowning in. For several long seconds after the slap, I couldn't hear anything except the ringing in my ears and the painful throb pulsing through my cheek. But as the shock settled into my bones, the world's sound slowly returned, soft at first, then clearer, sharper, louder. She slapped her. Oh my God, at a baby shower? That poor woman? Is she crying? The whispers floated across the hall like drifting smoke, some filled with pity, some judgment, some morbid fascination. The baby shower decorations seemed to mock me with their sweetness. The pastel pink balloons, the smiling teddy bears, the glittering "Welcome Baby Girl" banner stretched across the wall. Soft music still played faintly, completely out of place in the silence that followed my humiliation. I stood frozen where I was, the tiny pink box still trembling in my hand. My chest tightened with embarrassment. My fingers tingled. My vision blurred as tears pricked the corners of my eyes. I could taste the metallic tang of fear and shame at the back of my throat. Just breathe, I told myself. Stand still, don't crumble. Not here. But my body was shaking, trembling so badly that I had to clasp my hands together to keep from dropping the box. "Look at her," Tessa muttered loudly enough for the guests nearby to hear. "Acting like she's the victim, please. That box was empty." Her voice dripped with contempt. Sharp, cutting, she touched her cheek mockingly. "Maybe you forgot to put something in it, Or are you just losing it?" A few guests winced. A couple of women exchanged uncomfortable glances. One older woman pressed a hand to her heart as though physically affected by the cruelty in Tessa's tone. Daniel took a hesitant step forward, his brow furrowed deeply. He looked torn, conflicted between the woman he married and the mother who raised him. "Tessa, I don't think—" "You don't think?" she snapped, cutting him off. "Did you see the box? It's empty. She's always doing this? Always trying to steal the spotlight?" I swallowed hard, my throat tight. "I wasn't—" My voice cracked loudly, painfully. Tessa rolled her eyes dramatically. "Oh, save the act." She turned toward the nearest cluster of guests. "Honestly, I'm done. I'm not letting her ruin this day." She lifted her chin proudly, adjusting her dress as though the slap had somehow been an elegant gesture on her part. Her eyes swept over the crowd, looking for approval, for allies, for anything that would validate her cruelty. But something shifted in the room. Not loudly, quietly. Small things. A woman in a floral dress lowered her gaze, guilt flickering across her face as if ashamed she hadn't said something sooner. A young man by the punch bowl shook his head, muttering, "Unbelievable." A teenage girl clutched her phone tightly, eyes darting between Tessa and me with a conflicted expression. Not everyone was fooled. Not everyone believed Tessa's act. And then there was the tall man in the navy shirt. He stepped toward the gift table where the pink box had been tossed aside earlier like garbage. He picked it up gently, opened it carefully, and frowned. He looked up at me. "It's not empty," he whispered. A tremor ran through me. He lowered his voice further. "There's something under the lining." My lungs tightened. My hands shook harder. But before I could react, Tessa snapped at him. "Why are you touching my gifts? Give it back." He didn't move quickly. Instead, he glanced at Daniel, then at me, sympathy shining in his eyes. Quietly, without fanfare, he set the box back onto the table as if placing something fragile into its rightful place. Behind him, a soft gasp sounded. Two young women stood by the dessert table, one holding her phone with trembling hands. I think I got the whole thing," she whispered to her friend, her voice barely audible. "I recorded it. The slap. Everything she said." My breath caught violently. Her friend's eyes widened. "You did? Are you serious?" She nodded shakily. "I didn't mean to. I was recording her opening gifts because she asked us to. And then she slapped her mother-in-law." Tessa's attention snapped toward them, her expression fracturing for the first time. "What are you two whispering about?" she barked. The girls froze. One hid her phone behind her back. The other remained still, cheeks flushed pink with panic and shame. Nothing," the girl stammered, but the damage was done. I could see it in Tessa's eyes, the flicker of fear, small and swift, like a shadow passing across sunlight. She knew she had lost control. The room no longer felt like her stage. She opened her mouth, about to unleash another attack, but I took a step back, just one, and her voice faltered. I didn't realize I was retreating until my back brushed lightly against the wall. Around me, people shifted awkwardly, unsure of how to help, unsure if they should help. A few guests approached me hesitantly. "Are you all right? Do you need to sit down?" That was uncalled for. A middle-aged woman touched my arm gently. "Would you like some water?" I forced a small smile, my lips trembling. I'm okay, thank you." But I wasn't okay. My cheek throbbed. My heart felt like it was folding inward. The humiliation pressed against my ribs, making it hard to breathe. Every whisper felt like a blade cutting deeper into my skin. I needed to leave before I broke completely. Quietly. So quietly no one noticed at first. I slipped out of the center of the room, weaving through tables adorned with pink confetti and untouched cupcakes. I passed a banner that read, "Mommy-to-be," blinking against the sting in my eyes. The hallway was dimmer, cooler, safer. I pushed open the women's restroom door with trembling hands and stepped inside. The quiet swallowed me whole. The moment it clicked shut behind me, I collapsed forward, gripping the sink as tears poured down my face. Silent, shuddering sobs racked my body as I stared at my reflection. My cheek was red, my makeup streaked, my eyes glossy with hurt I could no longer hide. Why would she do that? I whispered to my reflection. Why does she hate me so much? I wiped my cheeks even as fresh tears rolled down. Inside my purse, the little pink box lay quietly, innocent, precious, filled with the hope I'd brought to this party, the future I wanted my grandchild to have. I opened my purse slowly, slid the box out, and held it close to my chest. She thought it was empty. She thought I gave her nothing. She thought I tried to humiliate her. But what she didn't know was everything was about to change. The truth, quiet, steady, undeniable, was already beginning to surface. And silence, once again, was becoming my greatest strength. By the time I reached home that evening, the sun had dipped low behind the neighborhood houses, casting long shadows across my living room floor. I stood in the doorway for a moment, clutching my purse to my chest, breathing in the familiar scent of lavender and old wood, my home, my sanctuary. The one place where the world could not reach me unless I allowed it to. But tonight, even home felt heavier. I closed the door gently behind me, and the soft click echoed through the quiet rooms like a sigh. My cheek still throbbed from the slap, a dull, pulsing heat beneath the skin. When I lifted my fingers to touch it, the tenderness made my breath hitch. Slowly, I walked to the dining table and lowered myself into the chair. Only then did I reach into my purse and pull out the tiny pink box, the same box that had turned a joyful celebration into a scene of humiliation I would never forget. My hand shook as I set it in front of me. Such a small thing, so delicate, so soft, so harmless looking. And yet that little box had become the center of so much pain. I drew in a shaky breath and lifted the lid. Inside, nestled beneath the velvet flap, the silver key lay exactly where I had placed it. Smooth, cool, glinting beneath the warm dining room light. A key I had purchased with love, a gift I had prepared with hope, a future I had envisioned with joy. And all Tessa saw, all she cared to see, was an empty box. The tears came then. Not loud, not violent, just soft and steady. They rolled down my cheeks, tracing the path of earlier tears, dripping silently onto the table beneath my hands. Michael, I whispered into the quiet. Speaking his name gave me both ache and comfort. I imagined him sitting across from me like he used to, arms folded, listening gently as I poured my heart out about work or Daniel or life. I imagined his warm eyes watching me now with sorrow and reassurance. Did I do something wrong? I whispered. Did I bring this on myself somehow? My voice trembled. Of course, I knew the answer deep down. No mother deserves to be slapped. No gift given with love deserves to be spat on. No heart deserves to be crushed under the weight of someone else's insecurity. Still, when the hurt is fresh, you question everything. A tear slipped onto the velvet of the box. I wiped it away with a shaking finger and gently lifted the key. It felt heavier now, weighted with meaning. My mind drifted back to the day I bought the penthouse. It had rained that morning, but by afternoon the sky was a washed-out gold, the kind of light that makes the world look tender. I stood at the window of the penthouse, staring out at the city below. Cars crawled along the streets like tiny beads of light. Michael would have loved the view. He always said the sky felt closer in places like this. The real estate agent smiled politely as she handed me the final forms. "You're very lucky," she said. "Units like this don't come around often. Are you planning to move here?" I shook my head. "No, it's for my son, for his future family." Her smile warmed. "That's very generous." Generous. Yes, but it wasn't generosity alone. It was love, legacy, a promise I made long ago. I remembered the night before Michael passed, the way his hand felt in mine, weak but steady as he whispered, "Give him something that lasts, my love, something he can build a life upon." I held on to those words like a thread that kept me from falling apart. Buying the penthouse wasn't just an act of kindness. It was fulfillment. It was honoring a man who taught me what family truly meant. I signed the purchase documents with steady hands, even though my heart fluttered. When the agent placed the key in a small velvet pouch, my breath caught. A future, a home, a gift of love. I kept it secret. Not because I wanted recognition later, but because I feared Tessa's reaction. Even back then, she was always competitive, jealous, possessive of Daniel in ways that made my heart clench uncomfortably. She disliked the way Daniel confided in me. She disliked the old recipes he still asked for. She disliked the bond that came naturally between mother and son. A gift as large as a penthouse would have ignited something ugly in her. So I kept it quiet, waiting for the right moment. I thought the baby shower would be perfect, a symbol of new beginnings, a surprise that would soften her, a gesture that would bring us closer. But the only thing it brought was heartbreak. I stared at the key in my hand now, the metal glinting like a sliver of truth. How ironic that the gift meant to unite us was the very thing she rejected with violence. My phone buzzed on the table. I wiped my face, steadying my breath before reaching for it. The screen lit up with an unknown number. My stomach tightened. A message. Just one line. "I'm sorry for what happened. I think you should see this." Below it, a video attachment. My heart pounded as I pressed play. There I was, standing in the center of the room, smiling softly, extending the little pink box. There was Tessa. Eyes narrowing, lips tightening, fingers snatching the box from my hand, the slap, sharp, sudden, echoing through the speakers so loudly I flinched again. Her voice seethed through the phone. "Useless! Always trying to ruin everything!" The guest's gasps swelled. The young woman's shaky breathing could be heard as she recorded. Someone whispered, "Oh no, she didn't." And then the camera caught something even more important. The slight movement of the velvet lining inside the box. A flash of silver beneath it. Proof, truth, everything she tried to hide. My breath left my body. Another message came through seconds later. "I'm so sorry. I didn't think she would treat you like that. Please let me know if you need a witness." My hand covered my mouth. A sob escaped, not because I was hurting, but because someone cared enough to witness my pain honestly. Someone who saw the truth even when others didn't. I lifted the key again, holding it tightly in my palm. The humiliation, the slap, the insult, they still burned. But now something else stirred beneath the ache, a seed of strength, a quiet resolve, a calm clarity that whispered, "This is not the end. This is the beginning." Tessa thought she destroyed me with that slap. She thought she humiliated me beyond repair. She thought she could flip the story, twist the truth, and walk away unchallenged. But what she didn't know, what she never bothered to imagine, was that her cruelty had uncovered something much bigger. She thought the box was empty. She thought I had nothing. But inside that tiny velvet box lay the truth that would break her lies apart and rebuild my dignity, brick by quiet brick. As the last light of day slipped across my dining table, illuminating the key one more time, I wiped the final tear from my cheek. Tomorrow, the world would look different. Tomorrow, the truth would start speaking. Tomorrow, the consequences of her slap would begin to unfold. And I would be ready. I woke the next morning with a heaviness in my chest that didn't quite feel like sadness anymore. It felt sharper than that, clearer, as though the humiliation I had carried home from the baby shower had crystallized overnight into something steadier, something that wouldn't break me even if it still ached. The first thing I noticed was the silence in my house. Not the empty kind, the hollow kind, but the sort of silence that felt like a moment before a page turns. A pause with purpose. I sat up slowly, letting the quiet settle around me like a blanket. My cheek was still tender when I touched it. The faint bruise had deepened overnight. A reminder of the moment my dignity was struck in front of a room full of people. But even that didn't sting as sharply as it had the night before. This morning, I felt something else rising. Resolve. I walked to the dining table where the pink gift box still rested. The lid lay open, and the silver key inside caught a sliver of light from the morning sun creeping through the curtains. For a long moment, I simply stared at it, letting the truth of what it represented settle over me all over again. Peace, future, legacy. Everything Tessa had accused me of taking away, I had actually been trying to give. I reached down and closed my hand around the key gently, letting its cool weight sink into my palm. I didn't cry this time. Not a single tear came. Instead, my breath steadied into something calm and deliberate. I wouldn't respond emotionally. I wouldn't rush into accusations or lash out in anger. That wasn't who I was, And it wasn't how you defeat someone who thrives on chaos. People like Tessa wanted loud reactions. They fed on drama, on twisting stories, on convincing others they were the victim. I had seen her do it before, stretching truth until it snapped, then shaping the broken pieces into something that suited her narrative. But this time, I had the truth. This time, she had been recorded. This time, she had exposed herself. There was power in waiting, in quiet, in choosing not to scream but to think. I sat down slowly and reached for the folder of documents I had placed on the table the night before. I flipped through the pages. The deed to the penthouse, the transfer forms I once planned to sign after the baby arrived, the emails between me and the agent, the bank transaction receipts. Every piece of proof was clean, precise, undeniable. I gathered them into a neat stack and slid the folder toward me. Then I placed the pink box on top of it, like a final punctuation mark in a sentence I had yet to speak. My phone buzzed. For a moment, my stomach tightened, expecting more messages from Tessa, more sharp words disguised as apologies, more attempts to twist the story into something I couldn't recognize. But when I picked up the phone, it wasn't her name I saw. It was Daniel. "Mom, can we talk today?" I stared at the message for a few moments. The weight of everything between us pressed down on my heart. I typed back slowly. "Of course, sweetheart." Immediately, the typing bubble appeared. "I don't understand what happened yesterday. Tessa said you gave her an empty box. I'm trying to give her the benefit of the doubt, but something feels off. Can you please explain?" A soft ache moved through my chest. My son didn't know what to believe. He loved me, but he also loved her. He was stuck between loyalty and confusion, between what he saw and what he was told. And I wasn't going to argue my innocence, not through text messages, not through desperate defense, not by begging him to see me. Instead, I sent him the video. No message, no introduction, no justification, just the truth, delivered quietly. When I hit send, my pulse quickened. The video processed and disappeared into the small space between our phones. A digital moment waiting to land. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 15. No reply. I imagined Daniel watching it, his eyes widening, his breath catching, his mind wrestling with the reality unraveling right before him. I pictured the moment he saw Tessa's hand rise, the slap, the word useless, the guest's gasps, the glimpse of the key flashing beneath the velvet flap. And I stayed still. A half hour later, my phone finally buzzed. "Mom." Just that one word. It held heartbreak, confusion, rage, shame, everything at once. A second message followed. "I didn't know, I didn't see. I can't believe she did that to you. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." My eyes softened. He wasn't angry at me. He wasn't doubting me. He was grieving the truth he could no longer ignore. I typed back carefully. "We'll talk when you're ready." I didn't push, didn't rush, didn't pile my own pain onto his shoulders. He sent only one more message. "Please don't do anything yet." I set the phone down and inhaled deeply. Don't do anything. That phrase used to mean restraint, but today it meant something else entirely. It meant don't react, don't confront, don't force anything. Wait, be quiet. Let the truth build its own momentum, and I intended to. The doorbell chimed. I frowned, startled. No one visited unannounced anymore. I walked slowly toward the door, hesitating for just a moment before pulling it open. A young woman stood nervously on my porch, the one from the baby shower, the one who had recorded everything. She clutched her phone to her chest like it was something fragile. "Hi," she whispered. "I'm sorry to drop by. I asked around for your address. I just wanted to check on you." Her concern warmed something deep inside me. Thank you," I murmured, stepping aside. "Please, come in." We sat in the living room. She explained that she hadn't slept much after witnessing everything. She kept replaying the moment Tessa slapped me in her mind, and she didn't want to stay silent when she could help. She offered to be a witness, to share her recording, to speak up if anyone tried to twist the truth. Her kindness felt like a small miracle. Another person who cared, another layer of protection around the truth. When she left, I sat back on the couch and exhaled slowly. There are moments when silence feels like weakness, but this wasn't one of them. This silence wasn't defeat. It was calculation, preparation, strength gathering quietly, waiting for the right moment to strike, not with violence, but with truth. I stacked the documents neatly, placed the pink box on top again, folded my hands around them. Then I whispered softly, a promise meant only for the walls of my home to hear. I won't raise my voice. I won't beg for respect, but she will see the truth. People underestimate quiet women, mothers, grandmothers, women who speak softly but feel deeply, but they forget. When a quiet woman finally decides to speak, her truth is louder than any slap ever could be. And Tessa's truth, sooner or later, was about to echo through every room she walked into. Daniel's house was quieter than I had ever heard it. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, but the tense, trembling kind, like the air itself was holding its breath. When I stepped inside, the only sound was the faint ticking of the clock on the wall. My son stood by the window, hands pressed against the frame, shoulders tight with a heaviness I recognized too well. He turned when he heard me, and the sadness in his eyes nearly broke me. "Mom," he whispered. I walked to him slowly, gently cupping his cheek the way I did when he was little. He leaned into my hand for a brief moment before pulling back, wiping under his eyes. "Tessa will be here any minute," he said. I told her we needed to talk as a family." I nodded, though my pulse fluttered. My purse hung lightly from my arm, the pink box and folder tucked inside. Quiet, patient, waiting. Daniel swallowed hard. "I saw the video at least 50 times, he said, voice breaking. I kept thinking maybe I'd see something different on the next watch. Maybe she had a reason. Maybe something... anything." His words crumbled. "But there's no excuse for what she did. Mom, I'm so sorry." I rested a hand on his arm. "You aren't the one who struck me," I said softly. He closed his eyes for a moment, pain flickering across his face. Before he could reply, the sound of a car door slamming outside made us both pause. Footsteps approached the house, sharp, purposeful steps that told me Tessa was coming in ready to defend herself. Daniel's shoulders stiffened. Mine relaxed. This was her stage, not mine, and I had rehearsed my silence well. The door swung open and Tessa swept into the living room as if she were entering a courtroom she expected to win. Her chin was raised, her eyes bright with indignation, her posture tall and strong, as though she were the one wronged. "Daniel," she said sharply, "before you say anything, I just want to make something very clear. Your mother misunderstood everything. And I don't appreciate being made out as the villain here." Daniel inhaled slowly. "Tessa, sit." Her jaw tightened, but she sat, crossing her legs elegantly, folding her arms across her chest. She didn't look at me once. "Good." Daniel remained standing. "This is serious, Tessa. We're talking about what happened at the baby shower." She gave an exasperated sigh. "Oh, please. Are we really still on about that? I already told you your mother handed me an empty box in front of everyone. She was trying to embarrass me. I reacted. Anyone would have reacted." Her voice sharpened with each word, slicing through the air. "Honestly," she added, gesturing dramatically toward me, "she has always tried to make everything about herself. I've put up with it for months, Daniel. Months. And now she's using guests to frame me as abusive? I will not be blamed for this." My fingers brushed the handle of my purse, but I did not speak. Daniel rubbed his forehead with shaking fingers. "Tessa, stop." His voice cracked under the strain. "You don't get to twist this." She blinked at him as if shocked by the resistance. "Twist? What twist? I'm telling the truth. She gave me an empty—" "No," Daniel said softly, "she didn't." Tessa froze. "She did. She handed me—" "No," he repeated, voice heavier. "She didn't." Silence fell between us, thick and electric. Daniel walked to the coffee table and held out his hand toward me. "Mom, may I?" I reached into my purse, withdrew the tiny pink box, and placed it in his palm. Tessa's eyes widened. Daniel held the box calmly, almost reverently, before opening it slowly, deliberately. The silver key inside gleamed under the living room light. The moment it caught Tessa's eye, her entire face changed. Her breath hitched, her lips parted, her confidence cracked so violently that the shift felt audible. What is that?" she whispered. Daniel looked at her with heartbreak etched deeply into his features. "That," he said, voice trembling with emotion, "is the key to the penthouse my mom bought for us and our baby." The silence that followed stretched long, so long that I could hear Tessa's shaky breathing, the clock ticking behind us, and the distant hum of a car passing outside. Her eyebrows furrowed. She shook her head slightly. No, that's a lie. She didn't buy anything. She wouldn't—" "She did," Daniel snapped, emotion bursting through his voice. "All the documents are here." I slid the folder forward on the coffee table without a word. Daniel opened it, slowly turning page after page so Tessa could see it clearly. The deed, the receipts, the agent correspondence, the transfer papers, all of it. Tessa's face went pale, then red, then ghostly pale again. "You slapped her," Daniel whispered. "For this!" She shook her head violently. No, I didn't know. She didn't tell me. How was I supposed to—" "You didn't let her tell you!" Daniel shouted suddenly, heartbreak erupting from a place deep inside him. "You didn't even open the box properly. You humiliated her. You insulted her. You attacked her in front of everyone." He covered his face with both hands. "My mother gave us a home, Tessa. A home!" Tessa's breath quickened, small, rapid, panicked breaths. Her eyes darted wildly between us. "Daniel, you can't believe all this. She's turning you against me. She always wants you on her side. She manipulates you." "She manipulates me?" Daniel repeated, stunned. "Tessa, she hasn't even said a word today." Everyone turned toward me then. I sat still, silent, hands folded gently in my lap. Not a tear, not a tremor, not a plea. Only truth. The door behind us creaked. All three of us turned. It was the young woman from the baby's shower, the one who had recorded the entire moment. She stepped inside quietly, holding her phone, eyes filled with quiet bravery. "I'm sorry to intrude," she said softly, "but Daniel asked me to come." Tessa shot to her feet. "What is she doing here?" Daniel's jaw tightened. "I want her to play it." "No," Tessa barked. "You can't use a video without my permission." "It's not about permission," the young woman said gently. "It's about the truth." And then she pressed play. The slap echoed through the living room speakers, loud, unmistakable, undeniable. The insults followed, the laughter, the word useless, the crowd's horror, the glimpse of the key under the lining. Every sound, every word, every second froze Tessa in place. When the video ended, she stood there, breathing heavily, tears gathering in her eyes, fury twisting her face into something unrecognizable. I was overwhelmed," she choked. "It was hormones, stress. I didn't mean to—" "You meant it," Daniel whispered. "You meant every word." She reached for him. He stepped back. "Daniel? I don't trust you," he said softly. The words crushed the air. She stumbled. No, Daniel, please." He shook his head. Tears streamed silently down his cheeks. "You hurt the one person who has always been in my corner, and then you lied, and you kept lying, and you would have lied forever if that video didn't exist." "I can change," she cried. Please, I'll do better." I finally spoke. My voice was calm, soft, steady. "Tessa." She looked at me through shaking sobs. "Respect is a choice. So is kindness. I didn't mean to—" "Violence is a choice too," I said gently. "And you chose it." She sank onto the couch, sobbing into her hands. Daniel turned to me again. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't see it. I didn't want to see it." I reached out and touched his cheek tenderly. "You see clearly now," I whispered. And clear sight sometimes is the beginning of healing. In the days that followed, the air around us felt different, thicker somehow, as though every breath carried the weight of what had unfolded in that living room. Nothing exploded outward after the confrontation. There were no screaming matches, no dramatic exits, no sudden reconciliations. Instead, everything dissolved quietly. Quiet endings hurt the most. Tessa moved out 2 days later. Not because Daniel threw her out, he didn't have the heart for that, but because she couldn't bear to stay in a home where her lies no longer held power. She packed hastily, avoiding eye contact, her posture crumpled and trembling. I wasn't there when she left. Daniel told me later that she didn't speak a word, didn't even look back. Her family reached out, mostly to ask questions, not express sympathy. And once they saw the video, once they heard the sharp slap echoing from the phone's small speakers, followed by her mocking voice, their interest turned into embarrassment. Not for me, for her. Friends distanced themselves. Whispers traveled farther than she expected. Screenshots circulated quietly, and with each passing hour, Tessa faced consequences she never saw coming. As for Daniel, he stepped away from her entirely, not out of hatred, but out of heartbreak. The realization that he had loved a version of her she had carefully crafted for him settled on him heavily. He spent long evenings alone in his home, sitting in the room meant for the baby, staring at the half-painted walls and boxes of gifts. He told me one night, voice shaking over the phone, "Mom, I don't know who she is anymore." Sometimes heartbreak isn't loud, it's a slow unraveling. I didn't push him. I didn't tell him what to do. I didn't speak poorly of her, even after everything. My silence became a balm, something he could lean into without feeling judged or pushed. When he finally asked me to visit, several days later, he greeted me at the door with a tired smile and eyes that carried too many sleepless nights. "Come in," he whispered. We sat together on the couch. He stared at his hands for a long time before speaking. "I want the baby to grow up in a home built on love," he said quietly. "A home without shouting, without jealousy, without fear." He swallowed hard. "A home that looks more like what you and Dad gave me." His words warmed something tender deep inside me. "You will give your child all of that," I said softly, "because you still know what love should look like." His breath trembled. "Mom, do you still want us to have the penthouse?" I studied him carefully. Not the broken boy who once cried on my shoulder, not the confused husband unsure what truth to believe, but a man, flawed, struggling, but trying with everything inside him to be better. "Yes," I whispered, "but not as it was originally planned." I reached into my purse and pulled out the folder, the same one that had rested on my table every day since the baby shower, but I didn't hand it to him yet. Instead, I reached for the small envelope tucked just inside the front pocket. "This," I said gently, "is something your father wanted you to have." He looked at me with confusion as I extended the envelope. He opened it slowly, unfolding the once white paper now softened and yellowed with time. His eyes moved across the handwriting, the familiar slanted letters he hadn't seen in so long. "My love, if life ever becomes heavy for our boy, give him something steady beneath his feet, something solid, something ours, a place that reminds him he comes from love. A home should be a shelter first, not a burden, not a weapon, not a battlefield." Michael Daniel's face crumpled as he held the letter against his chest. His shoulders shook with soft sobs. I rested my hand over his. "This is why I bought the penthouse," I said. "Your father wanted our love to carry forward, and I did it for you, not for her, not for the baby shower, not for attention, for you." When he finally lifted his head, his eyes were wet, but there was a strength in them I hadn't seen in years. "I want it in my child's name," he whispered. "Not in mine, not in hers. I want this to be pure." My heart swelled. That's exactly where it belongs. We spent the next hour filling out the necessary forms. Daniel held the key the entire time, turning it in his hand as though the weight of it grounded him. But the day wasn't finished. Later that afternoon, long after papers were signed and tears had dried, there was a knock at my door. Tessa. She stood on my porch, her shoulders slumped, her makeup smudged, her eyes swollen from crying. She didn't look like the woman who slapped me. She didn't look like the woman who hurled insults as easily as breathing. She looked lost. She didn't wait for an invitation. She simply whispered, "I'm sorry." Her voice cracked on the last word. "I don't expect forgiveness. I have to say it. I've been horrible to you, to Daniel, to myself. I ruined everything." She swallowed hard, tilting her face upward to blink away tears. "I was jealous," she confessed, voice trembling, "of your bond with him, of how effortlessly he trusts you, of how people see you. I thought if I controlled everything, I wouldn't lose him." She dropped her gaze. "But I ended up losing myself instead." For a long moment, I said nothing. Apologies are easy when consequences are heavy. Remorse is harder to judge. I stepped closer, softening my voice but not my boundaries. "Tessa," I said, "pain doesn't excuse cruelty." Her chin trembled. "I know. What you did hurt me deeply, and it hurt Daniel." "I know," she whispered again, "but acknowledging it," I continued, "is the first step, not the last." She swallowed, nodding weakly. "Can you ever trust me again?" she asked in a small voice. I let the weight of her question settle in the space between us. Then I shook my head, gently but firmly. "Trust is a gift," I said quietly, "and you threw it away." Her breath caught. She nodded through her tears. "I understand." She wiped her face clumsily, turned and walked down the steps. I watched her go, not with anger, not with victory, but with a calm acceptance. Some people grow only after losing what they thought they had secured forever. When her car disappeared around the corner, I whispered a soft prayer for her. Not for reconciliation, but for clarity, for healing, for the baby she carried. Daniel visited me that evening. He hugged me longer than he had in years. When he finally spoke, his voice was steady. "Mom, thank you for everything. I don't know how I let things get so far." "We learn," I said gently, "even from heartbreak." He sat beside me, and together we looked through the folder, his father's letter, the deed, the newly signed documents putting the penthouse into his child's name. A legacy revived, a home reclaimed, a future secured. When he left that night, I watched him stand a little taller than before. He wasn't just a father-to-be. He wasn't just a man healing from betrayal. He was a son rediscovering the foundation he came from: love, truth, and dignity. As for me, when I lay down later, exhaustion wrapped around me in soft waves, but beneath it all was peace. Not the peace of forgetting, not the peace of pretending nothing happened, but the peace of knowing. I had not raised my voice. I had not struck back. I had not let anger guide me, and still, the truth rose above everything. In the quiet of my bedroom, with the moonlight spilling across the floor, I whispered a small promise to myself. Some wounds bruise the skin. Others reveal the strength beneath it, and this time, I chose strength. I'm really glad you're here, and that I could share my story with you. If you liked it, show me by liking the video and subscribing to my channel. Let's see how many of us there are. Write in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is. I'm so curious to know where all you wonderful people are tuning in from. I share new life stories for you every single day. And now, 2 of my most popular stories will pop up on the screen so you can choose what to watch next.